Come use
Yeah.
it. It's 10 seconds? Yep. Guys, we are on the Blue Collar Future podcast, and we have David Wintzer.
You got it.
He is construction man, starting his own podcast just recently.
Yeah.
Lessons Learned Construction?
Yeah. LLC.
LLC.
Lesson Learned Conversations.
Conversations.
Yeah.
I see. I guess it could.
It could go both ways.
Yeah, maybe that's why I got confused there. But yeah, it's cool. I think I had wanted to bring you on, or I think you reached out to me not too long ago before you started yours, right?
Yeah. I saw you had, I think it was Taniela on.
Yeah, yep.
And that's, yeah, I started following you after that.
Yeah, yep. Taniela was a good one. We didn't have video for that one. Somehow it got messed up on my end, so it was sucky. But I got to have him on again.
Trials and tribulations of the podcast.
Of the podcast. You'll
Yeah.
find out. Something always goes wrong.
Yeah, I bet.
So let's just go right into it. What do you do?
So I'm a general contractor in Park City. We started our business. We're coming up on 3 years next month, and I worked in commercial construction for quite a while for a large billion-dollar company here in Utah, and then I went out on my own, and we scaled really quick. In 2 years, we built 10 houses up in Park City, and it's been a good little business.
Wow.
Yeah.
What commercial company was it?
Oakland Construction.
I think I've seen them around.
Yeah, they're one of the big four in the state. I mean, they do the hospitals, universities. They did the renovation of the Jazz Stadium and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're big.
Were you working there when they did that?
No, it got completed like right when I came in. One of my projects was the Adobe building off by Lehigh.
That's cool.
That was a cool project, and I did one up in Park City at the St. Regis residences, and then I went into the main office and worked in business development and marketing.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you've been all around there.
I've been all around. I mean, business is my passion. I've been in business for a long time, and so working with Oakland, I knew I was going to eventually go off and do my own thing, and I was kind of just pulling the puzzle pieces of how this larger corporation ran and operated a construction business, and then I took it into the residential world, and because they do it at such scale, and to take it into a relatively pretty small company and operate it, it's kind of cowboy country out there in the residential world versus commercial is a lot more red tape, and there's a lot more streamlines and processes and systems. And if you bring those processes and systems into the residential world, you're far ahead of anyone else.
Yeah, there's a lot more structure and a lot better scheduling, I think I'd say, in commercial construction. Residential, I mean, it's all over the place, and you'll find contractors that don't even know what ways north and
it's
south.
Scary. I get people DMing me all the time. I had a guy DM me the other day just saying, I need help. Like, I'm really struggling. And he just poured his heart and soul out of like what was going on in his business. And he was in debt. He owed people money, and he was just hitting the panic button. And it's sad. 'Cause in my opinion with construction is it's the barriers to entry are really low, technically speaking.
Yeah.
And
especially with residential.
Yeah.
It's heightened there.
For sure. I mean, you don't need much to get a license. No. And it's kind of scary how many people are out there not knowing what they're doing. And they may know how to build a house or do their trade, specifically, but the running the business portion, they know nothing about it. And the people that suffer are usually the homeowners because of it.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen quite a few homeowners get screwed by contractors that really just don't know. And maybe they're not trying to screw people out of it. They just don't know.
You're right. I mean, my whole theory on it is like, you're working for your boss, I'm working for my boss, and we're making whatever, 50 grand a year, so let's call it. And we see that our boss is making 300 grand a year. And we're like, well, I know how to frame houses. I know what I'm doing. And you're right. Like, they do know how to build a house, and they know how to do it A to Z probably, but they don't realize that their boss is out there selling, bidding, doing the taxes, keeping all the receipts organized and doing all the things that he has to do to run the business portion of it. So they go off and then they just get overwhelmed. And you're right. They're not bad people. They're not trying to do it. They're so overwhelmed. They're so behind the eight ball, and they keep kicking the can down the road. And then here they are 2 years later, and it's at the expense of other people.
What have been some of the biggest things that have helped you going into residential that you've taken from commercial? I mean, I know you said those systems and processes, but how can you kind of break that down simply for some of the people out there? Because, I mean, the way I see it, the information out there is so almost safe kept by people that they don't want to share with some of these contractors that don't know?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the biggest thing is with the systems, it comes down to just simple organization. Like my thing is like, it doesn't matter what the system is, you just have to use the system. And so if your system is like putting sticky notes up all over the house to tell people like, hey, you know, this paint's chipped, this is wall's crooked, whatever, and that's your system, cool, but just keep doing the system. People buy software, they use the technology, they get some cloud-based thing they're paying $1,000 a month for, and they never use it. And so all those things, yes, they can help you, but they don't work if you don't use them. And so I think the biggest thing I learned from the commercial world was the saying that they used at Oakland was you touch it once. And so if something hits your inbox, you got to put it into the folder. You got to put it into the system, because now Jaden can go find it in that same folder, in that same system. And if I get a new one, I got to delete that old one and put the new one in. Mm-hmm. And that way everyone's working with real-time information. Everyone's working with the same data versus, hey, Jaden, did you get that bid? Yeah, where is it? I don't know. I got to check my emails. I saw it, it's in my email somewhere. And then you're the only one that has access to it.
Yeah.
And so it's staying consistent with the system and touching it once.
Yeah. And I can see how easy it is to get off of that system, especially in a smaller company, because if you're one of only a few people doing that type of stuff, I mean, it's easy to get lost in emails. And if you don't immediately put it somewhere, if you don't put the information, like you send out a bid and put it into the folder, like it's easy to forget. It's easy to just get lost.
100%. It's super easy. And because, I mean, you know, as a contractor, you just get so many things thrown at you. I mean, it's phone calls and it's running and someone's like, we need this. And like your whole day gets screwed up because one of the guys that you know, they didn't bring their trowels with them. And you're like, oh my gosh, like the mud's showing up now. And you got to get in your truck and you got to drive, 10 minutes to go deliver those trowels when you were working on something else.
Yeah.
And that's construction. And so if you can find a way to keep the system in place that allows you to focus on what you can do to grow the business so everybody else can do their job to build the house.
Mm-hmm. Have you liked building in Park City?
Yeah, I have. We've gotten lucky. We've had a lot of really good clients. I mean, we work with a wealthy clientele. I mean, we're building multi-million-dollar homes, and we're lucky. We have a lot of good clients. But the thing that's tough with Park City is just the landscape. I mean, we're building on these crazy homes, and through some of these winters, I mean, just the waterproofing, and it's a logistical challenge in some of these neighborhoods. And if you're building an old town Park City, I mean, you don't have a parking spot. You got to transport your guys. Like, you got to get road closure permits to like just get a rebar delivery. Like, it's a logistical nightmare. But what it does is it definitely makes you think better on your feet. Mm-hmm. You're definitely able to, I'm pulling up Google Maps and like figuring out where we can park a truck for 1 hour while we do some task, where on a normal job site, you got 30 trucks outside. So it keeps you sharper, I'd say.
Yeah. We used to do quite a bit of work in Park City. When I very first started working, we were going up there a few times a year for a few different projects. And it was always a bunch of problems. and like you said, a bunch of logistical issues. Mm-hmm. And the landscaping is horrible up there. And you see these huge houses, five level houses that are built on a straight up and down slope.
Yep.
And I mean, it's crazy up there. And the problem we always had was crappy homeowners or crappy clients, because we were working for a general contractor, and like wealthy clients, but miscommunication there, and they were always unhappy with just for no reason.
Now, is this flat work you guys are doing?
Yep. And we didn't see that much on our end, but we heard about it a lot, and we would witness problems that these homeowners have with other contractors, and we're just like, holy crap, like some of these wealthy people up there are like crazy with their, I mean, I don't know.
No, there's definitely a level of detail. I mean, I have a dear friend of mine that, he's got a lot of money, and I told him I would never build a house for him. Like, he's the nightmare client, but that's, but he knows what he wants, and he's not going to tell a contractor otherwise. Like, when he interviews contractors, he's saying like, hey, I'm going to be on you, and I'm going to be looking every single day to see if this is done right or if it's done wrong. If it's done wrong, I'm going to tell you. Yeah. And so when they go in and sign these contracts, they're aware of his character, and so that's them. But
Yeah.
I would never do it.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to it's hard to sometimes pick that out from people. And it's also hard when you have someone like that, but they don't know what's going on. So it's hard to explain to them how things work, but they think that they know. And so then they get unreasonably upset for things a lot of times that are out of your control, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the things I say all the time as far as like, I think construction's a business of customer service, plain and simple. And obviously you're building a house and you're doing that, but you're providing a service for the customer. And the thing that's unique about construction is the majority of your clients have no idea what you're talking about. Like if you're talking about like, oh yeah, we got to hang these joists, do this, or like, we got to get the aggregate, grind it down to get exposed, or whatever those terms are. They're so simple to you and me. Like they don't know what you're talking about. And so it's really easy for contractors to kind of sweep things under the rug or, talk one way so that the client doesn't understand it. But at the end of the day, if you're not communicating with your clients, you're not providing a good customer service. And I think that's where contractors really get in trouble is they bury things. And then it comes to the end of the project and is, why is this project over budget? Why is this crooked? Why was this, and rather than just upfront saying, hey, we got a problem. I need to address it with you today, but if we do it now, it's going to be $5,000 more. If we do it in 2 months, it's going to be $10,000 more. And most contractors are afraid to have that conversation and they just wait till the $10,000, invoice is sent.
Yeah.
And then the client's like, what is this? Had you just discussed this with me, it would have been a different situation. And we've had, we have a client that kind of berated us one time and he was like, guys, like, just talk to me. I'm a good dude. Like, just tell me. And we were like, you're right. And it was a good lesson learned. That was the LLC for that client was just, all right, like upfront communication right away, nip it in the bud right away.
Well, that's good, having the good customers and someone like that would be like, look, I'm a good person. I'm not trying to be super mad at you. I'm a little upset about this. I wish you'd just communicate.
For sure. So. And so I call it just having a piece of humble pie. And sometimes you just got to make that phone call that sucks and say to your client, like, I made a mistake and here's what happened. And here's what I propose that we do moving forward. And you're gonna have to have that conversation one way or the other. So you might as well just get it out of the way and be upfront and honest. And, some contractors or just humans in general will come up with excuses or tap dance around it. But if you can just, blatantly just say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. How do we move forward? Mm-hmm. It's a pretty humbling and de-escalating way to approach it.
Yeah. We've had some crazy people though. I don't know up there. Oh. One time my dad had went through with this homeowner, and we usually don't deal with the homeowner very close because we're a subcontractor, and he spray painted out the patio and it had some curves in it and stuff. Went over it and we're like, okay, this is good. This is what you want. Spray paint it out with her. And then we form it and we're there pouring it. And she's standing up over the deck and is like, that's not where I wanted it. And we're like, the forms are right on top of the spray paint.
And the forms have been there for a day or two probably.
Yeah. And she's, that's not where I wanted it. And we're like, well, it's on top of the spray paint. She's like, well, the spray paint must have moved. And we were like, moved? Spray paint doesn't move.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? So that's kind of some stuff that we've run into people like that. And it's like, it makes dealing with people so just.
My theory, however, though, is it's just humans.
Yeah.
Like, there's just bad humans when it comes to that. And, sometimes people are, but I don't think it's just because they have money. Like, I forget I think it's Tony Robbins says, like, money only enhances who you are.
Yep.
So if you're a jerk, you're just a bigger jerk. If you're a really nice person, then you're going to be donating to every charity in the world. So, but that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's interesting to me it goes to show that you can build anywhere for the right people and have a lot of success. But if you have crappy people, which is a lot of what we've run into up there, is just jerks. It's like people that are just mean, unreasonable. And that's just, I don't know.
Well, flat work's tough too because you guys it's so final. You get one shot. It's tough. We've had a couple bad flat work experiences where guys were busy, so they subcontracted out and didn't tell us. And then, they weren't even there for the pour and we're calling them, they're ghosting us. And then the concrete turns out, terrible. And then I got to bring them out the next couple of days and be like, do you agree? This is not good. They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, I can't pay you for this, but I can't tear it out because it's a waterproof deck with radiant heat on it.
Oh yeah.
So where do we go? Like concrete's tough. I don't, I don't envy,
Yeah.
but you can make some good money doing it.
Yeah. Well, there is some money in it, and there's a lot of people that don't know. I mean, like you say, there's a lot of people that get busy and they subcontract to people that don't know, all of the scenarios that could happen that could potentially ruin a project, or maybe all the little details that you might not see. Especially on a project like that, you don't want to be subcontracting to people that you don't trust.
Especially when you've introduced yourself to me, the builder, and you're like, hey, can I earn your business? And the first job we give you, you do that. Like that's a surefire way to never get another job. Yeah. And they were stand up. They came a couple weeks later to our office, and they were like, they apologized. Like, just like I said, that humble pie, like, it was really cool of him. He's like, I apologize. I screwed up. And I was like, all right. Like, I respect that, but I'm not going to do business with you still.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever subcontracted anything out, and I don't think I would want to.
I love hearing that.
It doesn't, as you can imagine, a lot of concrete guys are control freaks because of this. Either you're a control freak or you're not, and then things go south all the time. I mean, like you said, it's a final.
That's it. You get one shot.
And one thing goes wrong, another thing goes wrong. All of a sudden, you're $10,000 in the hole on a project that you were supposed to be making some money on. Because, so it's tough, and
yeah, it's tough. Do you guys do foundation too?
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's a tough business. I mean, hauling all those forms around, that seems like I mean, is there more money in?
It depends. It's definitely less. I don't know if I can say it's less technical, but you don't have to finish it. You know what I mean? You form it and you pour it.
Yep.
And a lot of things can go wrong in both of those, and there's a lot of technicalities there, and you have to make sure it's done right, and it's a pain, but you have a whole aspect of it, because flat work, you have that as well, but then you also have to finish it, and every detail matters.
But I mean, every detail matters. My heart stopped yesterday. A client of ours lives, across the country, and he sent us a picture. We have daily logs that they can log into this portal and see the daily logs. And he was like, "Hey guys, I hope this is an illusion. This wall is supposed to be 25 feet long. It doesn't look 25 feet long." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's looking at the wall." And luckily you could see the impression of the forms. And so I'm counting how many forms there were. I'm like, "No, it's 25 feet. You can see it's 12 forms and blah, blah." But that's where that finalness on the footing and foundation. I mean, man, if you,
that too,
if you just, surveyed it wrong, or the pin was just slightly off. I mean, your wall's not perfectly square. That's troublesome.
The thing that's nice about footing and foundation versus flat work is you have all the time you need to get set. And once you're set, you're basically done. The pour is the easy part, basically.
For sure.
Flat work, the form and the prep can be just as hard as the pour, and the pour is difficult, and so is the finish.
Well, getting your grades, your slopes, that's difficult, but footing and foundation is dangerous too.
Yeah, and it's dangerous, and I would never want to do foundations. So I mean, that's just me. I
wouldn't either.
I don't think I'd mind footings, but I wouldn't want to do foundations.
I mean, you talk about, there's a couple trades. I'm like, man, I don't know if I ever were not to do one, and footing and foundation's at the top of that list. I mean, those guys are in the elements all day long.
Yeah, and they can pour in crappy weather as well, and they do.
I mean, they're working in snowstorms. They're working in 100 degrees. I mean, and everything in between, and just tying rebar all day long. It's tough.
Yeah. Well, if we have a load that we can't take because, I don't know, it's been sitting too long or the mix is wrong, find a footing or a foundation that's going up somewhere and put it in that or something. Like that. They'll take anything. They pour with 2% calcium and 100 degrees at 4:00 in the afternoon, and have 6 trucks lined up waiting to pour their foundation, and they pour at 4. Like, they just pour whatever hour of the day they can. And
do you guys use the same mix design for
it?
Most pours?
Yes and no. Yeah, like for us, or as the same as compared to footing foundations.
No, for you.
We use the same pretty much. It depends, because per company is different, and per scenario is a little bit different. Per location is a little bit different, because they won't let us use certain mixes, but we try to stay within like a full bag, or I don't know.
So if the truck's driving further or something, you'll put not an accelerant, but
a decelerant. Maybe.
Okay.
It depends. And that's another logistical issue. Like, if you don't have a plant close, I mean, you're talking 40 minutes of drive time. That's going to,
Yeah, we just picked up a job for a friend. We don't normally do this kind of stuff, but we came in at halftime. They let the builder go, and we're just finishing out the job. But yeah, they had a slab that they lost, and the truck got lost. I mean, this is deep in like by the Uintas, so it's far out there. It's a ranch.
Yeah.
And yeah, the truck got lost, and so like half the patio just looks completely different. It's terrible. I feel so. They're like, "What do we do?" And I'm like, and they poured it as a matte footing, so it's like I don't even know. It's like a 5 foot thick slab.
oh, jeez.
And I was like, well, that was dumb. You just wasted like thousands of dollars on concrete, regardless. But so I'm like, you can either pour 4 inches on top of this, or you can expose the aggregate. And they hate the aggregate, but then if they pour it 4 inches taller, it's gonna be above their thresholds. I'm like, so they're just pissed.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, it's final.
It's final for sure.
There's so many things that can go wrong, and I mean, luckily we don't really have very many issues, but we have all these years of experience in flat work, and we can anticipate things and plan properly. And this is where making sure you're set up and you plan properly and you order the right mixes and you anticipate things. But there's things you can't anticipate, like the truck getting lost, or I don't know, like the concrete plant having issues, or your pump truck being late or breaking or something. Like, there's all sorts of things you can't anticipate.
Let me ask you, what is up with concrete guys deciding that they're gonna do everything right before the mud shows up?
I don't even know.
It's a cultural thing with concrete.
I don't
like,
even know.
Sometimes I show up, I'm like, the driveway's not even formed. The concrete will be here in 20 minutes. So yeah, we got it. And they always pull it off. But I'm like, so we have a rule with some of our new guys, like, I need to see this formed and everything like 48 hours before, because I need to check the grades. I need to make sure that like something didn't go wrong.
Yeah.
Because inevitably when you do it 20 minutes before, something will.
Yeah. Things get missed.
But I don't know what the cultural thing is that you guys, I mean.
I think it's people just like torture.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are just so used to like, it's just what you do, I guess, but it's always the last minute.
Not us.
I should say you.
I feel like that's a lot of the guys that, I mean, a lot of the really big contractors will do that for some reason. They'll just show up and form and pour something. That leaves a lot of room for error, obviously. And if you didn't prep it, you can't tell what the grade's going to be. So if you end up getting on a driveway and it's not prepped to 4 inches, it's prepped to 6, 7, 8 inches. In a lot of places, you're not going to have enough concrete. And that's a problem.
That is a problem.
That's a big problem. Like, you can't order it unless you have seen what it is and formed, check grades, all that stuff. So we at least one day before, or like we'll leave a couple little things to do the morning before or something, but usually not much.
Before we started, you said you and your wife were building a house.
Yeah, we're going to start too.
I'm curious, like, this is your first house, you said.
Yep.
What are the things that you're most concerned about going into this you understand construction, so does your wife understand construction?
Yeah.
All right, she's around it. So you guys, so knowing it, like, what are the things you're most concerned about?
Oh, staying in budget is basically it, because we're going to be pretty tight on budget, and we're going to be doing a lot of work ourselves. So
you're going to self-perform a lot
of it. Yeah. So, I mean, to get as much as we can off of the build price, you know what I mean?
So you're hiring a GC though.
We are the GC.
Oh, you are the GC.
My parents have built and sold 6 or.
Okay. So you're all right. So you're all right. So build by owner. Cool.
Yeah.
So then, I guess it's just really just sitting down and looking at all the selections and saying, like, we can't afford that. Like, that's exactly. We got to go $1 less a square foot for this tile or something. Okay.
Yeah. So we're, I mean, as nice as we can get it while in budget is basically what I'm worried about. So.
How big's the house?
We're not sure yet. Probably about 2,000 total is what we'll end up.
That's a great size.
Yeah. So. It depends on what we decide, because we haven't decided slab on grade or slab on grade with a loft or go with a basement or something. Like, we haven't decided that yet, so that'll change.
I'm always wary of basements and floods. I mean, it is Utah.
We're in a high water table area, so probably not a basement. But
I wouldn't do it.
But there's people with basements there, so
all it takes is one bad day, and then you're ripping out carpet. Your wall, it's my neighborhood has a lot of basements too, and I've been there for 8 years. My house is slab on grade, but I've been there for 8 years, and I'd say in those 8 years, like 4 of my neighbors have had floods.
Yeah.
You know,
It's not good.
it's not good.
My parents have almost always had basements in their houses, and haven't had any issues. But almost everybody around us has issues. So they've been fairly lucky. I think a lot of it comes down to improper building. I think a lot of it or not being prepared really.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have like a walkout basement, that's another problem.
Yeah.
Because you don't have. I mean, if you have a walkout basement, I think you're a little less likely to be flooded down there. But if you have just a hole in the ground, you're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, and my neighborhood was built like in the 70s and 80s. So I mean, who knows what those foundations look like in that waterproofing? I'm sure some of those basements don't even have waterproofing on the walls.
Probably not.
It's crazy
Probably
to think. But are you gonna have a podcast studio?
I'm thinking about it.
Cool.
I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I need to. It's going to be even a little bit farther from here, so driving down here all the time. But probably have Skylar help me set it up still.
I like it.
Yeah, we're excited. So
it's a fun journey. I mean, you're in construction, so you get it. But man, it's stressful.
Yeah,
we built our house too, and yeah, it's I don't know what the something like. It's like the second one of the top things that you can the stressful things you can voluntarily put yourself through.
Yeah,
like an illness or something you didn't volunteer, but like I think divorce and building a house are like top 2, are like the most voluntary stress.
Well, we've got a baby coming this year too, so
I'll just add on to it. You should get a puppy too.
We have one already. He's not much of a puppy anymore, but he's a couple years old now, two-ish. So
well, congratulations.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting year, and the build. I'm not too stressed about it at the moment because I've seen it my whole life. My parents have done it, and actually my wife's parents have done it too. So
yeah, you're dialed in.
Well, we'll see.
Well, I mean, as far as dialed in as a homeowner can be, but going into building a house.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I feel bad for us really, because I don't like doing homeowner builds. If someone is building their own house and they don't know much about it, I wouldn't really want to take on their work most of the time. And it goes down to like, again, it's super stressful because if you don't know about construction, I mean, that's just like a contractor that doesn't know what they're doing and causing all these problems across the board. If you're working for a homeowner building their own house and they don't know how each step goes,
there's a lot of hand holding.
So yeah, when I'm going to be reaching out to subs, I'm going to be, I mean, fortunately we know a lot of people, so it's not going to be as difficult, but I feel bad for a lot of homeowner builders that don't have much experience, because I think they get taken advantage of, and then also they screw people over, people screw them over, because it's just if you don't have that system in place and you don't know how it works, it's super hard to get it done right.
For sure. And so the other thing that, homeowners are blind to, like you said, they don't know how it works and what they're going into. But the problem with our business is most homeowners are one and done. Like they're not, you're never going to have a repeat client. So a lot of the times they go with the budget guy. Yeah. And so they go with the person that has the lowest number. And so I can come to them and say, hey, we have these systems, we have these processes, we have these schedules, we do these daily logs, we do these, 3 weeks, we have an OAC, owner, architect, contractor meeting where we like do a Zoom and do selections and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, but you're 200 grand more than the other guy.
Way more expensive.
And I'm like, yeah, but does that other guy do this stuff? I don't know, but that's 200 grand. I'm like, okay, well,
yeah.
And then I don't know how their experience ended up, but a lot of them have a bad experience. Yeah. And that's the last time they'll ever build a house. So they can't come back and be like, you were right. Like, the next house, we're going to go with someone that's more organized. And, that's the extra $200,000 that you were looking for.
Yep.
And it's hard to sell that service to a client when they're on a budget because they've never done it before. So they don't have an experience to, any other business, you can be like, oh, don't go to that restaurant. That thing sucks.
Yep.
And I'll try another one tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you don't have that with building homes.
No, you don't have that. It's fine, a little bit final too. It's one of those things. It's like, it's done. I mean, you can. I guess when I say that, it's more like if you screw something up, it costs you money and it's final. I mean, that's a final. You have to pay that, and it's not a very light expense either when that happens. So yeah, I'd feel bad for a lot of those guys. And like you said, you touched on the fact that they would go with the budget guy. And I mean, it makes sense because why spend a whole bunch of money?
Yeah.
Looking at it from a bird's eye view, why spend a bunch of money if you can just go with this guy who quoted you way less? But from our experience, people that do that end up going with someone that isn't going to catch every detail. And, maybe they went through the plans and they didn't, catch some square footage numbers, and maybe the numbers are just flat out wrong. Maybe they didn't catch the fact that, there's a suspended garage in their house and they didn't account for that or whatever. So their bid is wrong anyways.
Well, we've had a couple times when clients are like, you were so much more than that person. I'm like, well, I go back to this contractor and ask him if he captured these three things, because these three things added up to $300,000. And that's the delta that you're telling me, that the difference between the two of us.
Yeah.
I'd ask him right now, and once they came back and they're like, yeah, he didn't have that in his bid. I'm like, what else didn't he have in his bid?
Yeah. What else?
And what's crazy about construction, I mean, is just there's so many things that go into a house. Like when homeowners don't realize that they got to pick out the color of hardware and handles and, what style baseboard do you want? How thick is the baseboard? What's the casing? There's so many details. Like, I don't know how to do that. Like, what do you want Schluter? Like, what's Schluter? Like, what do you want? They don't know anything about that. What style drain? And there's so many details, and architects are going to miss it.
Yeah.
Engineers are going to miss it, and contractors are going to miss it. So it's the inevitable of what's going to get caught halfway through, and how are we going to get through it? And are you putting enough padding in that bid to account for that? And there's so many elements in construction. It's not if it will, it's when it will rise to the top. Yeah.
All of this sounds like a good reason for people to not go anywhere near construction.
But don't build a home.
But don't build a home if you don't know what you're doing. That's what I would say. But I mean, I guess if you're ballsy and you do enough research on your own and you're prepared, that's one thing.
But it's a beautiful process as well. I mean, to see something on paper and like design it with your family and be like, oh, we should put this room here and this is where the kids' room is going to be, and like, and then slowly see it come to life. It's a beautiful thing. It's really, and I feel so privileged to be able to build a house, and that I live in, because we self-performed our house as well for the most part. And I think I'm one of the few people in my friend circles that will ever build a house in their lifetime. It's only getting harder and more expensive, and land's hard to find. And so it's an experience that not many people will have the luxury of doing in their lifetime. And so it's pretty cool.
How did you get into construction? We're going to switch gears a little bit. How did you decide that you were going to start working? Because you started off in commercial, right? How did you get to that point?
So I have no background in construction. Well, my father was a contractor at GC for 30 years, but I took no interest, like Nothing. Zero. I was all about just like partying and sports, and like I really didn't care. And I was a big skier and stuff. And so I took no interest. I was in the food industry for a long time. I owned a food company. We were in grocery stores all across the country, and I did that for 10 years. And then when we shut that down, after 10 years, at that time though, my wife and I, we built our house, and we couldn't afford to hire a GC. So we pulled my dad out of retirement. He'd been retired for 15 years. We pulled him out of retirement, and he kind of just walked us through the scene. And so I've been around business. I've owned business for a long time. And in the food industry, there's a lot of logistical things that go on, like getting the packaging, the sourcing the product, putting it on the boat, getting the grocery store, the shelving space, the sales, the marketing, all that. And the logistics of it, when we started building our house, really spoke to like my skill set of like multitasking and being able to get a bunch of people together to come up with the common goal. And so I knew nothing about it. I've never worked in construction. Like, I'm probably the least handy contractor ever. But so once we built that house and we shut down the business, I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just, I reached out to some friends, and I was kind of this unique case at Oakland. Like, they were like, you have a lot of unique skills, but we don't know where to put you. Like, we don't know what to do with you. And I showed up day one at Oakland, no joke. And they were like, okay, David, you're taking on like Division 8, Division 3, Division 4, and like, find all like the concrete and the doors and they're like, go. And I went to the bathroom and I Googled like, what's a division? And like, it was embarrassing. And like, I'm like looking on the plans, and I'm like, I don't even know what concrete looks like. Like, that's how green I was. Like, I didn't know this, like the speckles were concrete. And so like, I got thrown in the deep end quick, and they put me with the right team. They knew that they had to put me with the right team. So they gave me a project manager, project engineer, superintendent, like a team at Adobe that was like legit. And they were just super patient with me. And I'm a fast learner. You don't have to tell me twice. And so like I'd ask the questions, and I was out in the field, and I just started asking a bunch of questions. I was like, I'm just going to get made fun of, and I'm cool with it. I'm like, what's that? They're like, well, that's rebar, David. That goes in the concrete. And I'm like, oh, cool. And I just dove right into it. And then, but I knew I wanted to go do my own construction company. And I knew if I surrounded myself with the right people that knew how to do construction, I could manage the systems and the processes and get the clients and create the work.
So it wasn't even, your dad was a contractor, but you didn't even really grow up in it because you
Zero.
weren't interested.
Yeah. I thought my dad, like, I basically, in my brain as a kid, thought my dad was like a framer. He had a tool belt on and stuff. Like, I didn't know what a GC did.
Oh, you thought he was out there doing the work
Yeah.
building
I didn't realize that, like, I didn't realize what went into being a general contractor.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of general contractors don't even touch tools.
Yeah, totally.
That's the thing.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean,
nowadays,
I'm that guy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good example right there. Like, it's easy to say I'm a builder, because you could basically say I'm a builder as a general contractor, and people would just be like, oh, okay, and have that vision in their head of, okay, he's gonna put his tool belt on and go to work and be nailing boards together and stuff.
That's like, as a kid, what my perception of what my dad did every day was. It was obviously so far from that, but like, I took no interest in it, and it bums me out. But I think it all kind of just came, to a head when we built that house, and I was like, oh man, like this is. So it's kind of funny. He'd been retired 15 years. I'm like, man, I could have had all this schooling, learned all this stuff, but it is what it is,
Yeah. Did he not try to get you involved, or?
No, he didn't. My parents never forced me on anything. Like, I was really into competitive skiing, and like that was my passion, and so I traveled around and did a lot of that, and that's all I cared about. Skiing was like all I really cared about.
So when you say competitive sports, it was skiing and
golf.
Skiing and golf.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I play competitive golf and skiing.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, that's all all summer long. I worked at a golf course, and I play golf every single day, and all winter long I just traveled around and skied. And so like, I took no interest in it really.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I've grown up in it, and my dad brought us out to work, and I have a little bit of a similar experience where I wasn't interested, but I still was involved. Through school, everybody's always go to college. You need to go get a degree. That's how you're going to be successful and stuff. So I never planned on going with concrete, and I didn't like it, and it was hard, and it didn't seem glamorous to me.
Yeah.
And it is not made out to be glamorous, and construction in general isn't, and there's really not much of a push to it. So I was never interested really, but I would go to work because I'd get money and I'd be able to do,
Yeah.
And it was active and interesting and stuff, but I wasn't all that invested in it. And I kind of just fell into it because I was going to school and didn't want to do that. And I was like, well, why not do this?
It's a hell of a career.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money in construction.
Yeah. It just seemed like I was being pushed away for no reason, or just not being pushed towards, but in a roundabout way, like, oh yeah, you don't want to go do those. That's what you do if you can't go to college or something like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, the trades in general is such a dying breed.
Yeah. I
mean, I heard the statistic that in the next 50 years, out of every 5 subcontractors that retire, 1 will replace them.
Yep.
That's really a daunting thought, that because there's only so many things in construction you can replace with technology.
Yeah.
You need bodies. It's plain and simple. Like, you could have a robot paint a wall or something, but out there, doing flat work, it's not going to happen.
No. And so I take this a couple different ways from what I've been seeing. Like, I saw a robot putting up drywall. Okay, that sounds good on just a flat straight wall. But then when you start getting to the little details, you might have you're going to need someone starting to map that out as well. But I also saw a house that was 3D printed, and houses that are being 3D printed. I don't remember where it was, but there's a Instagram page out there
I've seen all this
about it.
Yeah.
So on one hand, technology is not going to replace what we do right now. But unless it completely changes the way we do, it might replace something. But I still don't see it replacing everybody in the trades, because it's all such a detail-oriented, hands-on, dynamic scenario.
Especially the houses like I'm building, like we have
Especially
we have these crazy staircases, like, all this custom steel, like glass elevators, like no one's a robot's not going to come do that kind of stuff. Like it doesn't exist. And so the younger generation, I feel like, technology's changed everything in the sense that people want to go out and they want to do podcasts. They want to, be on, the last thing they want to go is be out in the elements and do this job that has kind of had this bad reputation, if you will, of like, oh, it's what you do if you don't have an education, if you can't do anything else. And like, there's a lot of people that if you go to trade school and become a welder, a plumber, electrician, like in 8 years, you could be making $500,000 a year.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. There's so many trades that with little to no schooling, you can make a ton of money. And even in concrete, like concrete's, I think has a really bad reputation of being completely uneducated, like basic people, like illegal immigrants and people like that. That's the only thing you can do is concrete, that type of stuff. You can still make a lot of money doing it. And especially like in the commercial world and you're starting to run projects and it really doesn't take that long to get there. You don't need any schooling.
Yeah.
On the job learning. You
don't. And it's all experience. And once again, it comes down to just customer service. Like I say over and over, I mean, I coach some contractors and, I'm like, if you just communicate better than anybody else, you're going to win. Like obviously you need to provide a good service and you need to build a good house or, pour good concrete and finish it well. But if you're answering your client's phone calls, if you're showing up when you say you're going to show up, if you're delivering the bid that you said you were going to deliver and you're doing what you say you're going to do, the guy next to you competing against you isn't doing that. And you're going to win every time as long as you're doing good work.
Yeah. Communicating and having integrity in your work, doing what you say you're going to do. I mean, that's a huge thing. Like there's so many contractors and superintendents and project managers that promise all this stuff and say all these things and they never happen. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And it's not hard to stand out in this industry. It's really, really not. And if you just show up and you do a good job and you communicate and have good customer service, that person's going to recommend you. And especially in the business of concrete, like, my neighbor is redoing his driveway. The odds are someone else is going to be like, oh, we should redo our driveway, and people are just going to get the snow. We want to build that patio for the kids' playground in the backyard or something. Like there's always people and friends talking about, and they're like, oh, who'd you use for your driveway? Oh, these guys are the best.
Yeah. And so I actually, to stop right there, somebody had a business for over a summer that they did where they had a portable printer and they went out and gave bids out in like a whole neighborhood of driveway tear outs. And so they got one, we're working there, and they gave out bids by looking at their driveway, just printed out a piece of paper and slapped it on people's door. And they're doing one driveway.
What a great model.
The next person is like, oh, dang. And they already have a bid. That people are already there working. It's going to be cheaper and more effective that way because they're literally there with equipment right there. And they're like, we can get this done in this time, like within the next couple weeks, whatever. And they have the bid and all the information. And they took over like a whole old neighborhood.
This is like one of your competitors?
No, like,
you saw this online?
Not really. One of my friends that I had heard about them doing. So
what a great idea. And even to go to those neighbors and just say like, hey, I put on the note to say like, I put this on every neighbor's door in this neighborhood. If we get more than 2 or 3 people to sign on to this, there's a 15% discount or something. And then that way you're talking to all your neighbors like, we should do it. And I mean, what a great idea.
I know. So the bad thing about driveway tear outs is there's so many factors involved, and you can rip out sprinkler lines really easy and rip out utilities and stuff like that. But so doing a one-off is kind of crappy, and you got to charge a lot of money and to make it worth it. But because you have to have all the equipment there and the dumpsters and all of that stuff, and it takes a long time. But if you're in one neighborhood doing that for a whole street of people, I mean, pretty good, pretty easy, pretty effective,
Yeah, I have some of the students I work with that are always trying to get new clients. I'm like, and that most of them are just doing like small, renovations in other parts of the country. And I always say, like, just go knock on the 4 neighbors' doors around and just say, hey, my name's David. I'm building this house. Like, I'm building the Smith house down the street. If we're loud, if the music's up, if someone's in front of your driveway or whatever, just give me a call. Let me know. I'm here for you. And then you just do a good job. And then at the end of the project, you go give that person a little gift card, like $10 to Chipotle or a car wash, and say, thanks for your time. I know it's probably a pain in the butt. Like, appreciate your patience. And they're going to remember you. And then if they want to renovate their kitchen or their bathroom or whatever, they're going to ask their neighbor, hey, did that guy David do a good job? He did a great job. Well, yeah, he was so nice to me. And you're going to win a client.
Yeah.
And if you're doing 10 bathroom renovations a year and you do that to 4 doors, and one of those 40 people will become a client, guarantee.
Yep. That's an awesome idea. In construction, you annoy a lot of people, a lot of neighbors,
for sure.
Especially if you're building in a subdivision that has pretty much completed homes, because there's always a couple lots here and there that don't get built when the subdivision is initially done. And if you're not communicating properly with the neighbors, it can become such a sore. Like we were building in one, doing the flat work on one house up in North Ogden, and one of the neighbors would constantly call the cops on us for being out too early, even though we were out
in the regulation time.
And the cops would show up and just be like, because they have to. And
they're like, just there to put a face.
Yeah, they'd be like, you guys are all right, just keep working. And there are people like that. They just call the cops for nothing. And it's...
Well, and that's the dangerous part about that method that I just said as well. Like, to counter what I just said is now you got Karen calling you every morning, like, your guys are working. Yeah, they're allowed to. They're being loud. It's like, sorry, have a good day. And she calls you tomorrow. And so now it could backfire at times where you get the person that's always calling you over and over and over. But it's how it goes. We had that with the house next to us that, the guy just called us every day. Every day. Tell the guys to turn the music down. We're like, dude, like,
come on.
Yeah. Like, half your street's under construction. Sorry. Like, like,
which if you can imagine being a small business owner and a subcontractor and doing the work and having to do the bidding and all of that stuff, and then having that on top of it, where these people that you don't even work with, they don't even have pretty much no relation to you other than you're trying to keep them happy because they're going to call the cops on you and they're constantly blowing up your phone. Like, it's just one more thing. Yeah,
I got this story really quick. So we were building this house next to this individual, and this person, oh man, they were just the worst. And these houses are 6 feet apart. So your setback's 3 feet. Yeah. And so we had to finish the fascia on one part of the house. In order to do it, we had to put a ladder onto this person's property. And it was landscaped, and we told them, like, hey, we'll definitely we'll replace anything we damage. Like, we'll come in, put new bark. If we drip lines, plants, we'll replant them, whatever, cool. So we wrote a little note saying that, like, hey, here's, do we have permission to do this? And they were like, well, no, we got to have a real contract. So they sent us like a 10-page contract to put a ladder on, and it was like, wow, we had to power wash their driveway and their decks. What? And I was like, dude, like, and so we were like, fine, we'll just take a boom lift and we're going to have to block your driveway and we're going to go at an angle and we'll get it that way. And you can't come out of your driveway for the day. And then they called air trespassing on us, and they knew the code, and it was like per FAA, whatever. And like, so we called an attorney, and he was like, yeah, he's right. Like they can, we're like, oh my gosh. So we didn't know how we were going to do this. And they're like, and so they wanted us to sign this contract. And we're like, there's no way we're signing this contract with this person. And so we got a crane. I mean, this is the logistics I love in construction. So we got a crane that parked like 2 houses away from them. Mm-hmm. And then we put a man basket and we boomed it up over our roof and then dropped it straight down and then tied the guy to the fascia so he didn't sway and trespass 3 feet in the air into this person's property. And we called the cops, we called the city, we called everyone up there, and we had cameras filming the whole time. Mm-hmm. Of the angles and everything. We're like, if this person's going to try and sue us that we trespassed on their air, then we're going to document it. So we called the whole city was up there, and they came out and they were just shocked that we pulled it off. And it was the best. It was just the best feeling in the world, rather than like arguing with this person over and over via email about he said, she said.
That is a nightmare.
But it was so cool to pull it off. Like, everybody in the street knew about this person, and they were like, this person sucks. And we're like, we know. And when we pulled it off, like, there was like 30 contractors like watching the show as they came out of their house, like dumbfounded that we pulled it off.
Yeah. I wonder what this person did for work. They sound like some sort of.
Yeah, I know a lot about this person, but
I guess probably not.
yeah, we
Better-
did our
better-
research. We did our research on this individual before we
I guess
dove in.
Better not to say then.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people that get really sue happy and
That's what they do.
and call happy for the cops and stuff. And
I think that there are these individuals that move houses, find flaws, sue, and then get their whatever, and then on to the next.
yeah, I've heard of people that some people we know had built a house, and without saying too much, somebody bought it and they freaking sued the people they bought it from for like the stupidest crap in there.
They sued them or the builder?
They were the builder.
Okay.
But it was stuff that was just not. It was they didn't win, but they sued them over like all these stupid little details, and it was like, are you kidding?
Bro, like construction in general bums me out in that sense. Like the liability that the contractor takes on is so lame, and like we've dealt with some stuff in the past where you go back and it's the architect's fault, it's the engineer's fault, and there's like a boilerplate, like 2-word note on page 58, like in the bottom corner that says like contractor responsible for X.
Yeah.
But they didn't call it out in their drawings. They didn't give us the elevation. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. But it says contractor is responsible for elevation or whatever it is. And it's like, oh my gosh, like because we can miss it.
Yeah.
And their drawings missed it, but they have the copy paste boilerplate note that made them safe. And yeah, in 7 years, someone can call me and sue me.
Yeah.
And I'm liable. It's a brutal business for a contractor.
Yeah. And then your employees are mad that you're making a bunch of money and they're not.
Totally. That's the whole theory back to how we started this. Like the employee sees the boss is making all this money.
Yeah.
I can go do this.
Yeah.
And then they go off and do it. And you're right, you can, but you don't see what your boss is dealing with.
You don't see what you're liable for.
Yeah. It's the liability for contractors is brutal.
And it sucks because engineers try to pass the buck off. The architects
They all do.
pass the buck off to the engineer pass the buck off to the inspector doesn't want to take liability for anything at all, like not even to look at it and be like, yeah, that looks okay, that looks like it'll work. And so they're like, nope, you need to send this back to them and get final approval and all this crap. And it's just,
that's why like you always document everything, and if there's when in doubt, ask a question. Like when people are making field adjustments, I appreciate them like thinking on their feet and like, we got to keep this moving, but no, you got to slow it down. You got to put in a RFI, request for information, because that is a legal binding contract. When you reach out to an architect or an engineer and say, there's a discrepancy here, we propose we do this. And then they write back, agreed, versus if you did that and something happened and they didn't agree to it and you didn't ask the question, now it's on you.
yeah. You, do you guys do many suspended garages up there?
Yeah, we're doing one right now. We've done 2.
There, and that's a part where it is literally split between like 3 different parties on who's liable for what, because you have the architect who draws the plans, the engineering this stuff, but the precast company is the one that engineers the slab for the.
Yeah, they provide their own shop drawings.
They provide all that stuff, but the architect and the engineer have their own ideas of what goes on, and this rebar is required, but the precast company is the one that does it for their stuff. They're liable for it.
Yeah, and on top of it, like the precast company, like we have a house that we're doing right now, and it has drains in the garage, and they won't the precast company won't like put blockouts in there for the drains, and they're like, no, you got to cut them. I'm like, well, let's make sure that your panels, the holes and stuff, aren't in those locations and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like, why won't you're already there? Like put a blockout in it. Nope, we're not going to do it. It's a liability we won't take on. I'm like, oh my god.
Nobody wants to take on liability.
Nobody.
Anything. And then you get the inspectors. They come out and they look at that, and it's like, well, the architect says this, and blah blah blah, and this precast, this suspended slab isn't with the architect's specifications. And I'm like, but it's not up to their specifications. Precast company does the slab. They engineer the slab on top of their panels. So one of those.
We were going through something recently that it just super bummed me out on like the industry in general, as far as what risk I have to take on as a general contractor, and how liable I am for a long time. And it's really a dangerous business.
Mm-hmm. Dangerous, but it is worth it.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like all we've done is talk about all these problems that can happen, but
well, that's the reality though. I mean, you definitely gotta when when I talk to a lot of individuals that are, seeking construction, I'm like, you're putting out fires every single day.
Yep.
And it's a lot of stress and it's a lot of responsibility and it's a lot of liability. And back to like all those systems and stuff, like someone can't come on the job site if they're not licensed, if they're not insured, if they don't have a contract, if they don't agree to the bid. But like a lot of people are just like, hey, come on over. Like I need concrete tomorrow. Cool. See you there. And like, oh, I've worked with Jaden for 30 years. It's fine. Like we don't do contracts. It's like, well, what happens if Jaden's guys get hurt or something or whatever, like whatever happened and you don't have it documented, you're in trouble. And people don't want to go through the process of it because you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of individuals per project.
Yeah.
That's a lot of contracts. It's a lot of bids.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things that you got to put together and it sucks to do. But at the end of the day, it's very rewarding. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Super rewarding. Well, I think we're coming sort of on time here. Is there anything else you want to add or talk about real quick?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
your podcast is.
Yeah, my podcast, I guess. Yeah, I just launched that podcast, LLC, Lesson Learned Conversations. And I just go into a lot of things construction, a lot of things business. Right now, it's just me kind of just rambling on for 20 minutes per episode.
That's how it goes.
And eventually I'll start having, some trade partners on and some guys that I know a lot of very successful business people that I'm going to have on. And I'm fortunate enough to have grown up with a lot of professional athletes, Olympians, gold medalists. And so I'll have some of those guys on and
cool.
It's kind of all things I'm interested in, but kind of centered around construction and business.
Cool. And you said you professionally skied and golf. Do you still do both?
I didn't professionally golf. I played like collegiate college golf and stuff, but no, my back's all screwed up from skiing. I probably have to get a fusion next year. It's been about 6 years of real pain. Yeah, I just got like a nerve ablation where they burned all my nerves in my back. And
is that why you? I guess that's why you stopped skiing.
For the most part, yeah.
In particular, but did something happen where that's when you shifted gears or what?
No, it was like a slow burn on my back. Like I did like extreme skiing, so like a lot of jumping cliffs and a lot of impact and just.
So the stuff you see Red Bull puts out on their Instagram of people doing crazy crap skiing.
Yeah, stuff like that kind of. So yeah, but yeah, my body just wore down over time. So it's been really good for my career though, because I can't play sports right now, and I'm hoping this fusion will help. But it's helping my career because I'm spending Saturdays and stuff doing this kind of stuff.
That's good.
Yeah, I got no complaints. I'm in a good spot right now.
I used to, when I first started this podcast, I knew it was going to be a lot of work and time and stuff. And I was not really expecting how much of it. But now I'm not reluctant to do this type of stuff. I would probably rather do this than, there's a lot of things I probably would rather do this than that or stuff like that. It's become one of the hobbies that I enjoy.
It fuels you. Yeah. I mean, sometimes like friends of mine are like, man, you work too much, this and that. I'm like, but if I'm enjoying it, it doesn't matter. Like it's different if I'm like, oh, I gotta go to the office today.
Who says too much?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you don't enjoy it, yeah, you probably are working too much. But if you do, it's not work.
Yeah. I mean, when people are out, at a house just getting drunk or something, I'm like, that's not fun to me. Like I'd rather hang out and do what I got to do.
Yeah.
And so like, this is, I'm trying to build something, special, and it requires a lot of effort. And so that excites me.
Yep.
And you're awesome. In the same game.
Yep. Yes. And I don't even know what episode this will be, but yeah, when I hit the year mark, it was cool. So
I love that.
It was cool.
Any advice for a new podcaster like myself?
Just keep going. Don't get too.
How many episodes you release in a week?
One. I do one a week. I've thought about going to 2, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot extra, and I don't have the time for it right now, but I may at some point. The reason being is I probably would like to do one interview every week, but that's the part that's hard.
That's the hard part.
Being able to get, 52 people in the year. You're basically interviewing someone every week, and I don't like Zoom interviews, and I've done a bunch of them, and they're not.
It's different.
Yeah, I've enjoyed some of them that I've been on, most of them, and I can't say that the ones I've enjoyed them all, but some of them just haven't been as good as I feel like they would have been in person.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm mainly not happy with my end of it, not the guest, but it's just the conversation isn't as good.
Well, yeah, you're going to be so critical on it.
And yeah, and it doesn't flow. You don't get the connection there. So I don't like Zoom interviews. I'd rather do in person. It's a little
And are
more,
all your episodes interviews?
not all of them. I do one interview and then one solo.
Okay.
So alternate weeks. And the reason I'd want to do 2 a week is so I could do both. I do one interview a week and one solo a week.
Cool.
Yeah,
Congrats on the 1 year.
it's fun.
It is fun. Yeah, like you said, just keep
Exactly.
going and keep producing. I mean,
So,
you got to keep putting the content out. That's,
yeah, I'd say that's all I'd say is keep going, because you can get easily get critical, and if you take on too much of that and get critical of yourself and then get discouraged and all of this stuff, like you can fall off the wagon pretty quick. And
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people do.
Luckily for me, in the last like 2 years, I've been like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like I used to
Good.
be critical and like
Good.
nervous to post online. I was like, whatever, dude. I'm at an age where I don't care anymore, and I'm just gonna keep putting out the content and
Good.
see what happens.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have you on, and we'll have to do it again.
Yeah,
sometime.
appreciate it. Thanks, Jaden.
So, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
That's a wrap.